So let me just play from start. Fantastic. All right, everybody can see the screen. If anyone cannot, please speak up now. So welcome to today's topic, Coaching Circle, Discovering Your Values. As I said, this is a really, really important topic that I use in coaching sessions. Obviously, before we start working on any goal setting, before we start working on what may be blocking you, before we start working on the process of getting momentum in your life, we always look at the values. Why? Because values are the ultimate dictation of behavior. So this is where it all starts, based upon what you prioritize, what you invest your time in life, because obviously we can't invest our time equally in everything. So where most of your time, your attention, your money, your focus goes, this is ultimately determined by your values. So it's far more important than what a lot of us realize. So what are values? Firstly, values are a set of beliefs or opinions that influence how you live your life, right? They are a characterization of ideas that are important to identifying yourself as an individual. So they're very much based on how you feel you are, from what your personal experiences are, is how your values will grow and change. Now, obviously, there are different categories of values. We'll go into that shortly. There are some values which you carry with you your entire life. Starts when you're young, starts with, usually it's within the family, the shared values of the family system. And these don't change. These you carry with you right up until your day of death, of course. Then there are some values that will change based upon your experiences. And most of the time, if the values do change, they're either based on very painful experiences, or they're changed by very joyful or significant or moments where you've really exceeded an expectation that you've set for yourself. So now all of a sudden there's a new possibility. There's a new realm of what you can achieve. Therefore, your values shift. The underlying factors that motivate your behavior with yourself, others, and with your environment. So they are a big motivator of your behaviors, as I mentioned, and obviously they are sort of at the undercurrent of how you approach others, how you approach your environment, your relationship with your community, your country, globally. It sort of covers all the works there. Values obviously serves as a guide for human behavior. So globally, as a human species, as a human race, we also encompass certain values in how we interact with each other, how we interact with the planet. Of course, these are not the values of everybody on the planet, but it's kind of considered one of humanity's, main values, or maybe certain values associated with certain cultures. So some are very globally sort of understood and recognized, and others are very, very specific to an individual. But usually values are what guide our inner compass. They teach us what to look for, what to focus on, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. Also, of course, creates a sense of morality for us, what is right, what is wrong. How do we learn values? So first, obviously, is when we are born. We are predisposed to certain values based upon the family that raises us. So as an example, myself, I come from a European background. Obviously, Europeans value, there's a strong sense on family. And that's very common in a lot of cultures. So, in that sense, I'd be raised in a unit or in a family system where family comes in, let's say, the top 3 of values. That may not be the case with everybody else. So it just depends culture to culture. And of course, these are values that can also change in a person. So if they grow and they tend to focus more on, let's say, career, then obviously that value of family might go down a notch, right? If we were talking about priorities, because values are there. We have let's say, our top 3, our top 5, our top 10, but then of course, values can go down the ranking in terms of priority. So culture has a significant part to play in determining the importance and priority of certain values. Just as a sort of a backstory to this picture that you can see, this is actually the flag of the Australian Indigenous community. And for them, obviously, there's a lot of patriotism and nationalism in a sense of their ownership of the land, which is obviously very true in terms of that they prided themselves on how they took care of the land. They prided themselves in their relationship with nature, and obviously being the first true Australians that actually reached the shores and took care of the land and nurtured the land. And so for them, obviously, a big part of their values as a community is very much that sense of love of their country, patriotism, because for them, Australia is what they live and they breathe in terms of the land and their connection with the land. So this can also be, for them, is quite quite a strong priority. For other, let's say, nationalities or races, it might not be as much, right? And that can also be very individual as well. Some people are very patriotic towards their country. Some people are not so much. It doesn't necessarily, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just where it falls on the list for you based upon your experiences. Of course, for these people, very unfortunately and very sadly, this comes from a backstory of a lot of mass murder when the Europeans came into the country. So obviously for them, there's a passion of feeling that they need to be recognized as the rightful owners of the land, the first owners. So for them, obviously the value of the flag for them is very high, and understandably so based upon the experience. So again, for cultures, it's there's never it's never black and white. It's always quite gray depending on the history. But again, where that value sort of falls in the list is very much based upon that. Values develop as we learn to make individual decisions. So when we're young, we'll often take on the values of the family, but as we grow up and as we experience life for ourselves, we will start to change our values unconsciously and consciously, of course, based upon the decisions that we make. So if we start to realize that there's a good and a bad to every decision, if we make a decision where unfortunately the outcome is not so great, then the values might shift and change then, as opposed to if the outcome is positive, then the values can also change. So some we learn from intrinsic and global worth, such as love, truth, and freedom. So these are obviously global traits, global values, right? That I would say most people, if not all people, would value to some degree. These three would most likely be in the top 10 for most: love, truth, freedom, right? We don't just feel it individually within ourselves, that of course we value love, we value truth, of course the expectation that we're truthful with ourselves, people are truthful with us, etc., etc. And of course the feeling of being free, because nobody wants to feel, whether physical or emotionally, that they're in shackles. But these values also encompass the globe, right? Because there's a sense of love throughout humanity, love, truth. Of course, we all want to know the truth of the global situation. We all want to know the truth of our planet's health, of our own health, and of course, freedom. Everybody, every nation on earth, every country on earth, every person on earth understands and values freedom in their own way. So others are very personal in nature and instrumental to us in achieving our goals or living in a certain way. Yeah, so they're obviously very linked to goals, which is why they do come up a lot in coaching. Values linked with morality or sacredness. So this is also can be related to religion or spirituality. They're seldom likely to be compromised because they are perceived as duties rather than factors to be weighed in decision making. So these are sort of some of those let's say that group of values, as I mentioned, where most likely these are values that are carried through life, just because they're so intrinsic in nature. If you're born into a specific religion, or you're born into, let's say, a specific form of spirituality that your family or your community practices, or anything linked to morality or sacredness, these can be so incredibly personal, and it's almost like a sense of duty that this is what, like maybe let's say altruism, a sense of giving back. This becomes almost a part of your being. So it would be very difficult to compromise that value, because it just feels like it's part of what you value as a human being on earth. So for the people like that, let's say, like that would be very difficult to disconnect from that value. Then there'd be other values that would change, let's say once every year or so, just because of the experiences that can happen. So why are values important? Big question. So they are the ultimate motivator. 1 second. They are the ultimate motivator in ethical decision making, both on a personal level, a community level, a political level, and a global level. It is about weighing values against each other. So a lot of the time, as I said, it's not that this is one value I have and a value that I don't have. It's more so that this value is higher on the list than another value. They determine what is important to us and what we invest our time in. So this is a big part, is like if you're dealing with things like procrastination, you may be looking at a situation where you're actually not aware of what you value and what's important, right? So this can, even just an exercise where you work with your values, I've seen people's tendency to procrastinate improve dramatically, because now you have a conscious awareness of what is really important to you, especially because sometimes you end up being surprised with what you realize you do value. You might have thought, I don't value that much, but actually you do. So it is often at the core of conflict. So you're dealing with two people that either have different values, as I said, or different priority of values. So as an example, in a relationship, conflict may arise from one partner valuing space more than another. So for one partner, space may be second on the list. For the other partner, it may be 10 on the list. It's definitely not, it's barely hitting the top 10. And then of course can cause conflict. So it's not that both partners don't value the idea of taking space away from each other, but one values it far more greatly than the other partner. And this can be the cause of many conflicts. Most of the time, we have an unconscious connection to our values that is very deeply rooted. By bringing awareness to them, you can increase your confidence. So this is really about getting to know yourself. And that's the key to working with confidence, is getting to know yourself and making it easier to make decisions, especially life-changing ones. So obviously, when you're dealing with decisions that are really going to transform your life or create this new wave of shift, work with your values, because this will help you to get through that time, that transitional period. Because now you become aware of the specific values that align with the outcomes of your decision. So now it's almost like you're able to step back and look from observer mode and say, oh, that's why I feel more inclined to make that decision, because it aligns with this value that I have. So the awareness is huge when you really know your values. Knowing your values can also help with choosing a career. So for those of you who are ever stuck, again, very common focus in coaching is working with people who feel like they don't know their life path, they don't know their calling in life, or they don't know what they would want to do for a career. Connecting to your soul path, developing a healthy relationship as well as healthy friendships, overcoming procrastination, and also strengthening boundaries. Very hard to do work on boundaries when you don't know your values. So, if that's all clear, I'll give a moment. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we're going to get straight into doing some exercises. So just double checking, everybody has a piece of paper and a pen, and we shall start. So let's work on discovering your core values. And for those of you who already know, maybe you've done a similar exercise before, maybe you've gone through a coaching session before, you may end up finding a value crops up in these exercises that is a surprise for you, or maybe not. Let's see. So first thing to do, number one, think of the people that you most admire in your life. Now, this can be a celebrity, this can be a grandmother or a parent or someone you're very close to. So this doesn't matter, it's entirely up to you. When I say think of someone you admire, just go with the first couple of people that come to mind and write down what you value about them. So let's say if you can come up with 2 or 3 people, and just write 1 to 2 values for each person. Also, I'll give about, let's say, 2 minutes for this exercise, and then we'll continue. Now, don't worry, for those who might be wondering, I'm not going to ask you to share. If you wish to, of course, you can, but there's no mandatory requirement. This is just for your awareness. All right, so we'll just move on from that one. You can also do these exercises alone in your own time as well. Number 2, consider your best and worst experiences. So we're looking at experiences that have really shifted and changed you, yeah? Both positive and negative, both very painful and potentially also very joyful. What did rather, sorry, there's a typo there. What did you value or learn to value in those moments? So perhaps choose one positive experience, one really positive experience. Like as an example, maybe you won an award for something, or maybe you got a promotion at work, or something where you feel that was very positive. You would consider it one of your best moments to date in life, and then one of the worst moments, maybe one of the most difficult or painful moments, and think about what your values were and maybe how they changed after that experience. So one positive, one negative, and perhaps just one example of a value that changed or shifted based on that experience. All right. Number 3, identify if any of the following values relate to you. Choose carefully. Now I'm going to take you through about 100, a bit over 100 slides. Each slide is going to have one value, one core value. As each slide passes, I'm going to pass giving about 2 to 3 seconds for each slide. If you feel that this is a value that you have, write it down. Okay, and if you feel that there's any value that you don't have, of course, just let it pass. Because a lot of these times, these values, we like to think we have them. It just feels like something we should have. So in the moment, in the couple of seconds when it comes up on the screen, go, of course, with your intuition, but get a sense, is this actually a value that I have? Or is it maybe one that I think I should have? Yeah. Either way, most likely in this first round, you're going to write down a lot, but we are going to narrow it down to 10. So let's begin. Acceptance. Accomplishment. Accountability. Accuracy. Achievement. Adaptability. Authenticity. Do you value authenticity? And this is not just in yourself, yeah? This isn't just in general. Is it a value that you have? Alertness. Altruism. So obviously altruism, the feeling or the need to go out and to help, to be altruistic, to be there for people. Ambition. Amusement. Getting stuck on the A's here. Assertiveness. Attentiveness. Generosity. Similar to altruism, but not the same. Personal development. Community. Improvement. Now, some of these are similar. If you feel that they apply to you, write them down, because the next step we're going to do is we're going to group the ones that are similar. Inspiration. Gratitude. Respect. If I repeat any of them, I do apologize. If it's already repeated, just skip it. Potential or potentiality. Compassion. Timeliness. Purpose. Humor. We all need a good laugh sometimes. Originality. Competence. Harmony. Sensitivity. Spirituality. Whatever that might mean to you. Victory. There's no right or wrong here as well. Here we go. Learning. Adventure. Efficiency. Honesty. Grace. Meaning. Quality. Peace. Family. Logic. Responsibility. Prosperity. Ferociousness. Reason. Vision. Spontaneity. Tradition. Do you value tradition? Again, whatever that might mean for you. Insightfulness. Wealth. Wisdom. Self-respect. Friendships. Fun. Do you value fun? Having fun. Contribution. Creativity. Knowledge. Do you value knowledge? Optimism. Being positive. Glass half full. Reputation. Recognition. Stability. Respect. Openness. Work. Again, whatever that means for you. Loyalty. Do you value loyalty? Pleasure. Fairness. Faith. Growth. Again, even if some are similar, if you feel that individually they relate, write them all down. Honesty. I think that one's come up already. I'm not sure. Just go past that. Justice. Kindness. Leadership. Poise. Like they say, poise and grace. Success. Again, whatever that means to you. Trustworthiness. Fame. Curiosity. status, service, happiness. Some of these are a little more obvious than others. Security, religion, popularity, education, tolerance, realistic or realism. So how important is it for you to be, like, let's say, realistic in life? Is it something that you value? It's a bit subjective, that one, so it's what it means to you. Imagination, tranquility, exploration, intuition, joy, fearlessness, silence. Bit of a tough one, this one, I thought, when I first saw it. Patience, motivation, independence, truth, transparency. When something is clearly seen for what it is. Performance. Again, this can be taken in many different contexts, so whatever relates to you. Integrity. Humility. Imagination, I think we already saw. Hard work. This is a little different to work. Work is one thing, but do you value hard work? Again, it can be a little tricky one. Reverence. Intelligence. Experience. Fidelity. Valor. For anyone who's not sure about that, it just is simply strength of mind, strength of spirit. Unity. Uniqueness. Restraint. Hope. Freedom. Now, as I said, this is one that most people do value. This may not necessarily be in the top 10 by the end. So if you find that it's not, don't be self-judgmental. It's okay. But it's on some level, everybody values that. Mastery. Loyalty has come already. Sorry for the repeats, guys. Boldness. Beauty. Again, that's subjective, so that's what it means to you. Empathy. In the therapy business, empathy is a must for the top 10 values, but not everybody has that in their top 10. Endurance. So the ability to keep with something, pursue it, persist with it, even when it gets tough. Experience, I think, has already come. Maturity. Order. Travel. Individuality. Resilience. Not sure if that one's come already. Teamwork. Do you value teamwork? It doesn't necessarily have to be at work. That can also be at home. Power. Another interesting one. Do you value power? Reverence has come. Result-oriented. So results that are basically behaviors that are result-oriented. Or tasks that are result-oriented. Do you value working in this way? Credibility. Decisiveness. Courtesy. For some, it's a very old-fashioned trait. For others, it's a very important one. This is different to politeness, yeah? Courtesy. comfort, common sense. As they say, common sense is not so common. Confidence, I think, has come. Sustainability. Wonder. Certainly linked with travel, not always, but feeling of looking at things through the eyes of wonder. Playfulness. Something we can value as a child that can change over time. Passion. I think that one's come already. Balance. Self-reliance. Another interesting one. Relying on yourself. Do you value that as a trait? Do you value that in yourself? Do you value that in other people? Sharing. Sharing is caring. But not always. Consciousness. Again, this is obviously a very huge word. Can mean many things. So whatever it means for you. Consistency. Devotion. Talent. Temperance. Enthusiasm. Control. Another interesting one. Do you value control? Cautiousness. Support. Dignity. Again, whatever that means for you. Equality. Coming to the end now. Drive. Similar to passion, but not quite the same. Discovery or discovery. Certainty. Again, also very interesting. Do you value certainty? Courage. Enjoyment. Do we value enjoyment in life? Simplicity. Sincerity. Contribution has come. Dedication. Do you value being dedicated? Discipline. Structure. Another interesting one. Do you value structure? Solitude. Very much an individual value. Dependability. That can be dependability in yourself and dependability on others. Control has come. Conviction. So when people speak with conviction, sense of certainty, assurance, strong. Conviction. Oop. Last one that was. Okay, so hopefully I haven't gone too fast for you guys and you've managed to write them down. And we'll move to the next step. Now, some of these you may know, some might have surprised you. Obviously, there's thousands. You can go into many values, but these are sort of around the top 100, 120 values that reside with most people. So next thing that we're going to do, having a look at all the values that you've resonated with, that you've written down. Now, we're obviously on a little bit of a time gap here, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to do this exercise, but please feel free to take this outside of the webinar, yeah, and practice this in your own way, especially if you've written down a lot of values out of that list, because the aim is you're going to condense it down to 10. Now, it is going to be tough, but I'm going to show you how you're going to do it. When you do get down to 10, when I was first told to do this, I was shocked. I was like, I can't, I've got like 90. And I was like, no, keep going, because a lot of the time, some values are very similar. And sometimes as well, when you look at it in a different way, you realize that's a value that I've taken on. That's not necessarily something that I actually value as an individual. So then you push it aside. So again, top 10, yeah? So not saying that that's not a value, but you're looking at what you really value in your top 10. So next exercise, categorize values into specific groups. So have a look at the list that you have. I'll give everybody about 3 to 5 minutes to do this, yeah? Just go with the most obvious, where you can see that there's some that are grouped. So as an example, if you wrote down spirituality growth, we didn't have meditation in this list, I took that out later, but if you say spirituality growth and something similar to that is for you always under one potential title or one group, then you can put it all together and it would go under personal growth, which basically covers all of these things. So just take a few moments now, have a look, and see which out of all of the ones that you've written down you can kind of group together as similar and put it under a title. Now again, guys, there's no right or wrong here, so just do what you feel, because two values may seem very similar to you. They essentially mean the same thing, but for others it might not be. So there's no right or wrong here. And again, it's just for your personal benefit. If you have two that you feel are very similar, another thing that you can do is you can just circle both. So let's say as an example, you've got ambition, you've got drive. If for you they are essentially the same thing, which word resonates more for you? So if you say ambition, then you would just cancel out drive. Same with compassion and kindness. If they are similar or the same for you, then go with the one that resonates the most and cancel the other one or cross out the other one. Another minute and a half, and then we'll move on. As I said, please feel free to finish this in your own time. Just want to give respect to those who may have to leave on time so that they get to see all of the slides. All right, so stopping just where you are right now, you can look and see already how many you've grouped together and how many words you might have deemed synonymous with each other and you've cancelled out. So you should be already at least substantially a lesser number than what you started with. As I said, if you haven't finished, please feel free to continue this in your own time. Next is identify the central theme in each group. So this can help you to kind of create one word if you're not sure. Yeah. So as an example, you may find that if you're dealing with qualities like kindness, empathy, compassion, can't think of any of the others, but you might find that they all go under, let's say, humanity, or they might all go under, my gosh, you just may put it all under kindness, or you may put it all under, yeah, I'd probably go, or even under spirituality for you, if that connects to spirituality. So kind of look at what each theme is. And you may even find that two groups have the same theme. So you might have grouped compassion, empathy, and kindness in one, and you might have grouped spirituality, humanity, and health, let's say, in another, and you might all feel that that goes under personal development. So that's entirely up to you. Again, each to their own, each is a personal experience. So have a look and see, and this is also just for your awareness, see what themes are very prominent in general. So we'll just give about 2 minutes for that exercise. Something like travel can also be deemed under personal growth for a lot of people. So just have a good think about it. Again, you can take some more time in your own time, have a think about what you associate with each of these values. For some person, travel might be a very physical experience. For others, travel can be a very spiritual experience. It can be the essence of spirituality for them. And that's, of course, okay, individual experience. Okay, so we'll wrap up from that one. Again, apologies if those are continuing on, but I'm going to leave my email at the end of this webinar. For any of you who wish to let me know what your top 10 values end up being, I would love to hear it. Or if you have any questions, of course, you can email. Next one is choose. So this is where I'm actually going to leave this with you guys. So this is after the webinar, but out of the groups that you have, okay, and the work that you've done to minimize, out of what's left, you need to choose your top 10, okay, and order them. So when you're looking at your values, or when you're looking at your top 10, you need to look at what is absolutely essential for you. So these are, you're looking for things that are non-compromisable, yeah? So as an example, maybe something like drive, maybe, or ambition is something that is non-negotiable for you. You absolutely value it in yourself, you value it in others, right? To the point where, let's say as an example, if you don't see it in yourself, you're very critical, it's something that you need to have to start a project, and maybe it's also something you highly value in a partner. And you also see it as a very redeeming quality in people in general. So that's something that is very, very important to the essence of your being. So then you would write that down. Now, this is where often it's hard for people because they, as an example, compassion may not be in your top 10, but we feel that it should be, right? So really get to know what in yourself you feel that should be there that might actually not be there. And this is where the tough part comes in. But this is when you do it on your own, you're more likely to be honest. I had to do it in front of a coach that I had at the time. And it was very tough because I was bringing in you know, these sorts of things like spirituality, kindness, compassion, reassurance. And, you know, after a while, it was still going to 20, 30, and I had to keep breaking it down. And eventually some values actually went out that I was very surprised. So you might even find that family, which is one that we all think is in the top 10, but maybe it's not in yours, and that's okay. So work with what is essential for you. Okay. So for now, I'm going to move ahead and say, just for the sake of ensuring that we have the time, once you have this, then you know your top 10. Yeah. Key is be very firm with yourself, go with your essentials and break it down one at a time. So if you can't figure out which are your top 10, go through each value again and ask yourself, is this essential for me? Is this essential? Is it really important to the decisions that I make? Yes or no? Go intuitively. If you're really not sure, go with intuitively and do it in your own space so that you can be really honest with yourself. Once you get down to the top 10, that's when you know these are the values that are driving my decisions. These are the values that I need to look at daily, because every single time you make a decision in your life, especially when you're looking at something that is significant to you, most likely one of those top 10 values will be behind the decision. So it will really help you to have these values, to know them and to have them memorized, because when it comes to these moments, these sort of pivotal decision-making moments, or these moments of deciding where you want to go in your life, what's your next best step, go and turn back and look at your values and see what values maybe are causing you to be restrained, to pull back, and what values are behind the feeling that you are being, or the decision that you're being drawn to take. Yeah, so it might be like, oh, I feel like I want to go and perhaps you know, instead of deciding on a next career, I want to go and spend the next 6 months traveling overseas because I've just realized that travel and wonder is in my top 10. So it can really realize something different. I'm not sure if somebody's trying to speak because I heard someone's microphone switch on. Anyway, if anyone wants to talk, I'll let them. This is the last part, guys, and then I'm going to all let you go. So thank you for those that have stayed on 20 minutes over time. So what we're looking now is self-reflection exercises, yeah? So these, I recommend that you all take a picture on your phones, and this will be the last part that you complete with the top 10 once you have them. So question number 1, are any of these values surprising to discover? If so, which ones and why? Number 2, explore a significant moment where this value was the primary motivation behind a decision or action that you took. So this requires have a think about it. Third, how can this newfound awareness help you to change and prioritize things in your life? So how can these top 10 values, now that you're aware of them, help you to change and prioritize the things that maybe you want to change? What would you now want to dedicate more time to now that you know what your top 10 values are? And what can you do differently starting from today? Okay, so for those of you who love journaling, this is your perfect exercise for you to do today or tomorrow, preferably sooner rather than later while you have those values in your head. And just as an added tip, guys, those values that I gave, obviously, as I said, there's many more. So if those inspired other values, if that made you realize, oh, there's another value, wasn't in that list, but this is something I value, of course, please add it in. It's not just out of that list. But those are obviously the most common, considered to be by psychologists after research done, considered to be like the main, let's say, under 200 of values that most people have. But of course, everyone's individual. So that might have inspired a different value in you. Please write that down as well. Okay, so those are your self-reflective exercises. 30 more seconds for those who want to take a picture. Once you complete this exercise and you have your top 10, this will be really life-changing for you. You will see how differently you react to things in your life, to the decisions that you make, to the way that you look back on memories in your life and the things that you chose, the way that you would do things differently. It all comes back down to value. So you actually realize how important they are. Once again, I do hope that some of you, if not all of you, took a good amount away from this, even if it's just that maybe one value or two values are on your list that you didn't realize were on your list. I plan to do a workshop next month that will hopefully expand the topic of values, work specifically with people who want to explore this on a deeper level. So if you're interested, do keep track of that, because as you can see, this can easily go over an hour's worth. But I wanted to introduce everybody to this new understanding of values, what they actually are. A lot of times people are not completely sure of what values actually are. So they might just think it's qualities, or they might think it's just family and social life. Obviously, it goes far beyond that. So as I said, this is sort of like a nice little way to bring about a new topic, a new way of thinking about it. But for those of you who want to go deeper into this or want to work on your values in a session, expanding them, understanding a little bit more about what drives them, maybe even if it's something that you want to shift and change, please feel free to contact me at Illuminations. Even if you just want to come for a consultation, a 30-minute consultation, which is free, and we can speak about this exercise. If you have any other questions, I'm open for the next 5 minutes for those who want to discuss or want to share. And for those of you who do need to go, or those of you who have stayed overtime, I do apologize for going overtime, but I'm very grateful that you stayed and that you're present with me during this webinar. So I hope it's helpful, and thank you all so much for being here. Let me just stop sharing. For those who would want, for those of you who, anyone who has requested the presentation, if you could please send me your email privately right now, or I'm going to put my email, and you're free to send me an email on this, and then I will forward the presentation to you, yeah? So this is just jessica.canero@gmail.com. Okay, I just seen a question. Let me just go up here. Should we write the value or the category in our top 10 as an example? Yes, that's correct. Sorry, love, I didn't see your question, but yes, you can do that. So as an example, yes, if humanity is kind of what you feel covers, let's say 5 values, and those values, that goes in your top 10. If all those values are important to you, then yes, let's say humanity would be in your top 10. Or if you label them all under compassion, then compassion would be in your top 10. As long as there's like a theme. So, you know, as long as like for you, they're all pretty much synonymous with each other. If one value is very different to another, then they need to go separately. Perfect. Okay, I have got that email then. Okay. One moment, guys, just taking a picture of any emails that I need to. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kritika. It's always nice to have you here. 1 second, guys. Okay, perfect. So again, please feel free, anybody, if you want to email me, any concerns, any questions, do you want the PowerPoint to do this exercise again in your own time? I am more than happy to send it, okay? Thank you all again, yeah? Have a lovely evening and best wishes to you all and take care.